Welcome to Design Thinking for Marketers. And this webinar, unlike most, is a different one. This webinar comes in the amalgamation of how designers and marketers could meet their mindset, how marketers could think more like designers, and how startup owners, entrepreneurs, or designers could create marketing campaigns or advertising campaigns that actually are centered towards your user, not just your goal that you're trying to achieve for your business. So to start with it, I'll just quickly introduce myself. I'm Bhavishya Garg, and I founded a couple of startups over the years. I am also the founding member of CoinDCX, India's largest cryptocurrency exchange. I'm currently working at MX Player, as you can see, MX Player as the head of user experience department. I've also created world's first line of physical products to help UX designers. It's been acclaimed by UI UX designers all around the world. UX Notebook is also an Amazon choice book, uh, not just in India, but across the globe. I also put out free content to empower students find their passion and make it a career. So what's the agenda for today? Why are we here? 9 principles of customer centered marketing. Attention, control, closing, context, consistency, continuance, clarity, credibility, and accessibility. If you take anything away from today's webinar, these are the 9 principles that you should remember and live by when you're creating your marketing campaigns or advertising campaigns. These are literally the secret that top companies, most companies, use for creating high converting marketing campaigns. Now let's plot these 9 points across an experience graph. Keep this experience graph as the core thing that you would start your marketing campaigns with. Every time you design a marketing campaign, every time you have a basic plan laid out, draw even on a paper or take a printout of this, just draw these 9 lines and try to mark how does your marketing campaign rank for these 9 metrics. And how would you rank that? From the scale of delight to friction. As you can see in that attention here, what would be an average experience graph? That it's not too delightful, it's not too frictionful, it's entirely in the middle. What's the ideal marketing campaign, you would ask? It's entirely in the delight section, right? All the metrics you would see, all the design principles are focusing to delight the users. But what most campaigns look like? This is how most campaigns look like. Most campaigns they might be good at, let's say they might be good at closing. Their CTA might not be too bad, but they might be doing something really worse in terms of consistency. They might be attracting the user's attention in a completely wrong way. And such things actually in the long run break your campaign. These are the major leaks of your marketing campaign. So experience map like this really help you plot the overall experience of your marketing campaign and rate it as good or bad. The very first point, let's start with the 9 principles. And the very first principle that comes that you need to remember for when you're designing for your marketing campaign is attention. So we see this word thrown around a lot in the industry. Attention basically means is when, number one, are you worth the user's attention? Second, how are you attracting their attention, right? So the ideal thing for marketers to aim for is a 1:1 attention ratio. And in simpler words, it's focusing on one goal, right? Making things simple, so simple for people that they don't need to think too much. Their attention is focused on just one thing. Let's look at a couple of examples. Let's first look at the data. The data says that if we have around, at an average, most people have 4 to 5 links on their landing pages. But if you had just one landing page, if you had just one link on your whole landing page, your conversion rate would have been 13.80, as compared to, you would see in 7 links or 9 links, 7% or 6%, nearly half, right? Nearly half, just by reducing the number of clicks. Why is that? Because the attention is undivided. Only one link is there that you need to focus on. So let's look at different type of pages that most people land their marketing campaigns on: homepage, information page, and landing page. Homepage, as a lot of marketers already know, has an attention ratio of 1:many. On the red box, there is a campaign that let's say is for COVID-19. It's very situational. You want to focus on that campaign right now. If you're running an ad for that campaign and you land people on this page, the attention ratio definitely beats the whole purpose. Your conversion would be really low because people can't understand it. People can't focus on just one thing that you're trying to convey. So attention ratio on homepage, on information pages, on any page that you'll have a lot of navigation links on is not great. So what's great? Dedicated landing page. Attention ratio 1:1, where the whole page is focused on just one thing that you intend to do, that you want users to do on your page, just one thing, right? Let's take an example. So VWO is one of the major softwares that allow you to do A/B testings on your website. They published a case study for Yippee Chef, and you would see here that on the so I'll use the word control and experiment. By control, I mean the original version, and by experiment, I mean the experimented one. So in control, in the original version, they had a navigation. You would see the black one, the navigation links at the top. When they removed the navigation links and just focused on their create your Yippee Chef registry button, they had 100% increase in their conversion by just removing the menu. Let's look at another example. Unbounce is one of the major players out there on landing page optimization world, and they do a lot of testing. In this example, they eliminated the social share links and other links from their landing pages and tested it with a very simple, just enter your email kind of landing page, and they had a 31% more ebook downloads, which eventually was their aim. So to summarize, make sure that you don't overwhelm your users. Make sure that attention ratio is, if not 1:1, it's tending towards 1:1. You are focusing on one goal. You are not trying to confuse users. So let's go on the second point: context. Context is basically context of everything. Let's say you came on this webinar, you saw and maybe my Instagram post, you saw maybe some post of on LinkedIn, you maybe saw an ad, right? There is a context that brings you today to this webinar. There is a story behind it, and this is exactly what it means: maintaining a consistent connection between your source ad and your landing page is called context. It's also in a lot of terms called scent in the landing page world or conversion world. It simply means is that if you are saying, let's say, if you are saying A, or if you're saying something on your ad, let's say that world, the sky is blue, let's say, all right, something really simple. You're saying something on your ad, the sky is blue. They come on your landing page and they read some random thing about some other thing. They can't see a mention of sky or blue, right? That's a complete miss of the context. Let's look at this example. You would see an ad here which says Austin MBA Fair November 16, right? When someone clicks on that landing page, the landing page that you see beside it opens up. Now you see no mention of either Austin or fair, or even 16 November for that matter, clearly, right? And this is a classic example of how our marketing campaigns miss out on the context. We miss out when we go through different touch points. When we go through different parts of our funnel, we miss out on what's important. We miss out on the message that we initially gave to the user. And that happens in every case. Even let's say you are sending us a bunch of emails which drive people to a landing page. The email tells a story. It sets up a context, right? And when they land on your landing page, they expect that you understand that. They expect something from the email to be used in the landing page, right? Let's look at another example. Even Netflix has been guilty of that once. So you would see an ad here. It's in I think it's in Spanish. It's in basically non-English language. You see an ad in non-English language that leads to a landing page which is in English, right? This is another example of lack of context. If they would have tested this funnel with our experience map, they would have made a huge job in the context, right? Because the context is completely missing. Someone who knows Spanish or whatever non-English language is here, for someone who reads that language, landing them on a page that has English is totally irrelevant, non-contextual. So fundamental questions to ask that you have to ask before launching your marketing campaign is, who is coming to your site? How did they arrive and what are their goals? I can't focus on this point enough. It's very important for every marketer, every startup owner, every designer, for that matter, to know who their users are, to know what their personas are, what's their emotions like, what they need, what are their goals. You need to know everything about your users in order to make relevant ads for them, relevant marketing campaigns for them. And what's the next step forward for them both in terms of goals and your conversion funnel, right? So you need to find a bridge between what they want in life and what's your business goal, and what do they need to understand, believe, and feel in order to confidently take those next steps. So these often fall into the realm of objections that people have against your product, against your service, against your business, right? What do they need to understand or believe or feel in order to confidently take a decision or plunge towards your brand? These are the three fundamental questions that you need to ask to make sure that you understand the context and understand the overall sense of where the users are coming from and where they are going. Every inbound channel has a different level of context. You would see if someone has landed on Twitter, has seen your tweet, and is coming on a landing page through that, the context is quite small because you would have 160 characters to set the context, which is quite low. On the other hand, if you would email them, it's a much longer form factor. It allows you an opportunity to give a lot more context. So every inbound channel has different level of context that you could set. But as soon as the person lands on a landing page, you get an opportunity to fulfill whatever is remaining. Let's say if they are landing even from Twitter, you have an opportunity on your landing page to set the whole context, because you know that they are landing from Twitter and hence they might not be aware of a lot of things, which might not be the case in case of email. Let's say you have set up the whole story in email and now landing page is only used for the conversion. So this is how you need to really understand where your traffic is coming from and what kind of context do they bring along with them. So third point is clarity. Clarity is all about learning to write copy and content that quickly and effectively communicates the value proposition of your campaign. It needs to be crystal clear to the user in the simplest manner possible what you're trying to convey. What do you want him to do? So let's play clear, not cocky. So the simple message here is you need to be extremely clear but not cocky. Let's look at an example at Cisco here. So Cisco, you would see the digital means dollar, variation below it. This was an old variation that Cisco had, and the IT is fast again is the variation that they recently launched. You would see that initially digital means dollar is the headline that they had. It means nothing, right? It could mean so many things. It's so abstract that doesn't set the right context for people. It doesn't set it. It's not clear enough of what exactly do you do. But in the redesign, they have made it clear. They focused on their core prowess, which is IT, and say that IT is fast again, right? Let's look at another example from SaaS Invaders. The clear way to convey their value proposition was the number one place for growing your startup, which they recently launched. But their previous version was pretty cocky, right? It said, become the next unicorn and use the best web tools ever. And it's not clear enough of what exactly does SaaS Invaders have in it for the users. And why should I even fill my email, right? But when they redesigned it and made it much simpler, they removed all the elements that created all the anxiety in people. They came up with a much clearer, much simpler page that had much higher conversions. Control. The fourth point is extremely important when it comes to, so control is the point where it will make it or break it for your campaign, right? A lot of ads, a lot of campaigns, actually they run out of the user's control. It starts opening pop-up, or it opens up something that you can't close, you can't skip, right? And that goes way beyond the user control. If you need to ensure that the user trusts you, if you need to ensure that the user go till the end of your marketing funnel, you need to give the control back in their hand. The driving wheel should be in their hands. So people complained when an ad took control of the interaction and forced them to perform action against their will. But in contrast, they expressed positive effect when the ad was triggered by their action and they could opt out of it. I know that seems counterintuitive to people. It might seem like we are not showing them enough ads. They'll all cancel the ads. It does seem counterintuitive. But in the long term, if you can find better ways and the better timing for your ads, it works, and it makes you earn a lot more money than those obstructive ads. The least disruptive ads are that don't make any noise or fit well into social media timelines. Very well said by an group. Fifth point is consistency. I hope everything is clear for you guys till now. We'll catch up in the questions soon. The fifth is consistency. Consistency is aligning every element of your ad or your page with your singular campaign goal. Your singular campaign goal could be signups, it could be more ebook downloads, it could be more webinar registrations, anything be it, right? But your entire campaign has to be aware and be consistent with it. And not just your entire campaign, your all your landing pages and ads, they should say similar things. They should focus on similar CTS. They should focus on similar value propositions, so that it's reiterated subconsciously to the user, and it creates a sense of clarity among them. So I know that when we create landing pages, we get suggestions from so many stakeholders that I think you should add this, I think this is another thing that we should add, we are releasing this another thing that you should add. You get so many suggestions that you would want to show in your next marketing campaign, but every time you listen to that evil devil on your shoulder, you are beginning a downward spiral into mediocrity. And that's very true. What you instead need to do is you need to focus, as we said, on one thing, and make it consistent across, right? As we said it in the first point, attention has to be one-to-one, and while maintaining that, all your copy in your ads and landing pages has to stay consistent with what you're saying and what you want from users to do. What's the first step that users should take? So test for consistency in your landing pages. This is a very convert your page or ad into a boring Excel sheet. Trust me, it works. Divide it into each elements and score them for consistency to your central message. What you simply need to do is you need to divide your ads or your pages into elements and start noting it down in Excel sheet and score them to if they are completely aligned with your campaign goal. If it's sort of kind of aligned with your campaign goal, score it 1. And if it has nothing to do with your campaign goal, score it 0. Trust me, you would be surprised of what are the elements that are doing nothing for your campaign goal or help nothing towards it, right? This is an example. This is an example of how you could do it. You will see here that we laid down all the page elements right across on the Excel sheet. I started noting down how consistent were they with the campaign goal. And it turned out only 3 elements were sort of kind of aligned with their campaign goal, and rest were not. So this is what I'm talking about. When you lay down these things on an Excel sheet, you really realize what copy, which elements of your landing page or ads are redundant or not necessary. Sixth is credibility. Does user trust your brand or product? I can't stress this one enough. The whole economy, in the sense, is working on trust. Trust is a major thing. when it comes to not just online products but offline experiences, online and offline, both kind of experiences. Types of trust elements on a page. There are many types of trust elements that you can include on your page to increase the credibility, of your overall campaign. Let's say seals, reviews, referrals, social shares, ranking, number of sales, n number of ways where which you can show the users how credible your brand or product are. We have already looked at the examples of how trust elements can be included on the page, but obviously you do not need to write fake testimonials. Can't stress that one enough. It's very easy to find it. No matter how smart you are, it's always some way that someone will call on your bullshit, and that won't be right. So obviously, do not write fake testimonials, but also do not add your user reviews that have hyperbole laced testimonials. Things like, "Oh my God, it was so good," or "It was so awesome." Such things do not add credibility. Such things do not add a sense of urgency for anyone to buy. It just seems like someone is fangirling over someone for some reason that you don't know, right? So what you could have instead done, for example, in this case, Kathy Stencil's photography says Megan has been a lifesaver to me, and that means nothing. You don't get enough data points to even understand how Megan has helped the Kathy Stencil photography, and how could it have been better? Something like this, right? Where it contains a relatable photo of Kathy where she's holding a camera, so it's quickly clicks with the people who are photographers. It has a specificity by referencing a lesson material. She says here that after 2 lessons on exposure, I better understand how light works. And then she goes on to say, I'm no longer freaking out at sunset trying to balance the sky and foreground. She's being very specific, and these things you and me might not understand as a photographer, but someone who's a photographer might vibe with him, right? And it also tells a transformative effect that she's no longer freaking out, and this is the classic before and after, right? So this is how this is what a good testimonial usually looks like. 7th point, closing. CTAs, as we call them, call to actions, are one of the major things on your landing pages or your marketing campaigns. No matter how much trust you set up, no matter how many social proofs you give, no matter how relevant your messaging are, if your CTA is not visible, if your next action that you want users to take is not obvious for users, they will not convert, they'll bounce. It is literally the tipping point between the bounce and the conversion. So there are some other words that you would see. If people experiment with their CTAs, a lot of times they end up with a CTA variation that has a higher conversion lift. You can see an example here. This example is taken from Unbounce. So they tested get started with get started for free, and surprisingly, get started for free had lesser conversion than get started. They used my in their CTA instead of your, and they immediately saw a conversion lift. Same in the case of download instead of download now. Download now has an urgency to it, and hence they saw a higher conversion lift on download now. And this is how you need to constantly keep a mindset of testing your CTAs, testing your final conversion points, and seeing if there's a better way to present it, if there's a simpler way to present it. And 8 is continuance. Now, let's say you have finally got the user to convert. You have finally got them to buy a product that you were driving them for. What then? Are you using their buying momentum to upsell or downsell? This is an example of a classic sales funnel you would see. Let's say you had a funnel where finally you made $27 on the one-time offer that you had, but you didn't stop at the checkout. Right after the checkout, you have an one-time offer for upsell. You're asking the user, do you want one more? Or you are showing them any other product. You are taking them to any other webinar. You're basically selling them something else by using their buying momentum at the moment. And let's say even if you get 50% of the users to the checkout page, uh, it's a huge number. It's a huge traffic for a traffic campaign, for an advertising campaign that you're already putting money on. So instead of completely ending the funnel there, you have used this traffic for an upsell or downsell, and that works extremely well, especially in certain niches like e-commerce, where you're using the buying momentum to sell more. There are a few things that you can ask users to do after conversion, and this is ranked according to the commitment level it's going to take for the user to do it. The social share, a lot of people will do it right away. They do not mind it. On the other hand, start a free software trial is a very high commitment level, and they might be wary of it. So there are many things that you can ask. These are just a few examples that of upsells and downsell or other things that you could ask after the conversion. And the eighth and ninth and the final point is accessibility. Is your product inclusive? So disability doesn't mean that the user certainly has a personal health condition. It could also mean there is a mismatch between the human interaction and the computer, right? What is it? What do I mean by that? Let's take an example. Who all can benefit from the captions on videos? The person who is deaf, definitely, but also the person who is taking a cab in a bright sunlight, and they do not have an earphone on. They are continuously running. They are in a line, and they can't actually listen to the video. They are just seeing the captions. And the other example could be teaching a child to read. Let's say a mom is trying to teach a child. The captions could be very beneficial in that way also. So this is a classic example of how one thing can benefit not just a person who might be differently able, but also many different other parts of the overall humanity that you could be reaching with that. Let's take a look at another example. Different people at the same time could benefit. For example, someone who unfortunately does not have a hand. Let's say 26,000 of them are there in the world. Let's say there are 13 million people who have got a fracture in their one hand. They are also for your app or your product essentially same, because they both will be using your app from one hand. And situational, let's say a mom is using your app, then they have a baby in one hand. All of these three personas are going to use your app with one hand. This is a classic example of when you design for a much larger audience, for a much larger gamut of humanity, you end up affecting not just them, but a much larger group. So what Microsoft does to ensure this is it plots the touch, see, hear, and speak sensitivities into permanent, temporary, and situational categories. So for example, someone who for example, let's say the sense of seeing. Someone who is blind, who cannot see at all, has a permanent disability. Someone who is a cataract, he could get an operation. That's why they have a temporary disability, and they might be seeing your app correctly just a month ago, right? And situational, maybe he's a distracted driver. He can't look at your app. He just have to interact with your app without looking at it, right? So this is a clear example of how you can use your four senses to plot temporary, permanent, and situational categories, and consider your design for all of these 12 types. All of these, every time you design something, every time you design a campaign, just look at this chart and see what would a person who is deaf, how would a person who is deaf interact with it? How would a person who has a heavy accent, who doesn't understand Hindi, would interact with our product? These are the questions that become a birth point for innovations, for you to present your solution or your business in a much better way. And that's it. This is the takeaway. If you take anything away from this session, these are the 9 points they need to live by when you are launching your marketing campaigns. And I assure you, if you compare your marketing campaigns to this chart and just plot your experience map throughout these 9 points, you would see between delight and friction, you would see how your overall campaign is turning out.